You're listening to the Work Cultured Podcast, where good companies keep good company. Well, hey, welcome to the Work Cultured Podcast. Today we have Ryan Leahy with us from HomeTown
Lenders.
Okay. Yeah. I've seen a few other business names floating around. So just give me the quick and dirty. What's your business? Or multiple businesses?
Yeah, thank you. So Leahy Lending has been the brand that we had in Austin for the last, going on 16 years.
Okay.
I recently, in January of 2021, was hired to become the regional president for HomeTown Lenders nationally, and to become the regional president for the state of Texas. Nice. With that, they kind of had us phase out the Leahy Lending brand and into the national brand, and so it's HomeTown Lenders of Texas.
Okay.
So it's about clear as mud.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So usually we have a question we ask every guest right out of the gate, but before we even get there, I'm breaking the rules a little bit. How is that transition for you? Obviously, you have this great role, this bigger company, probably access to more lenders and banks and rates and all these kinds of things that are pluses. But you probably, was it tough to say goodbye to the brand that you've been running for 16 years that had your name in it?
Great question. Yes. And it still is. I still default to Leahy Lending, and I still wear my Leahy Lending hat, it's because it's just like who we are.
Yeah.
I'd really like the rawness of the local feel, and I really think it brings an authentic feel to what clients are really craving. And so it is hard. But the mothership is in compliance is a different world. So good old compliance.
Yeah. We'll talk about you being a maverick later. You're not one that loves compliance. I already know that because I can relate. So can producer Daniel over here. Okay. How many employees do you have?
We are right at about 17 now.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And how was that transition for them? Did they just jump right on board, or were they also a little bit,
Yeah, they were a little bit, it's been an interesting year this year. So we had as many as 43 employees.
Oh, wow.
And so starting in June, we had to start doing a downsize, because our market has been, the mortgage market with interest rates going up and kind of everybody tapping the brakes on what's happening with housing. Is the sky falling or prices falling? What's going on? So that's been also a real leadership challenge as well, and really tough. And how do you keep the team motivated and positive while you're unfortunately having to let some amazing people that have been part of your culture go to the next chapter in their lives?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's really easy to rail on the big companies, the Amazons. When you got Jeff Bezos still bringing home $1 billion a year,
right?
And he's letting people go. You're like, well, okay, you could maybe just take a little bit less. But when you're talking about a small company and your entire industry has, just 180. That's a complete reversal from what the housing market was 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
And you have no choice.
Yeah,
you could take your salary to zero, and you can't pay those other 20 people.
And I did for 90 days, so we were trying to do everything we could, and as a internal optimist, I thought I could turn it around against all the market forces. Yeah. And interestingly enough, my CEO said, don't fault yourself for being a good-natured person while you went out and sacrificed yourself and your only livelihood and went into debt to so that you could make payroll for your others. Don't beat yourself up over that. And I made the same mistake actually in 2007 and 2008 when I had a team of 14 people and I thought I could turn it around. Yeah. And unfortunately, you have to adapt with the market. And so this time it wasn't as painful as a lesson because I was much quicker to adapt.
Sure.
And but it still doesn't make laying off amazing people that you consider your family any easier.
Man, that's tough.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
And 2008, there was no way you can't overcome what happened then.
No.
Yeah, that was
you
wild.
really couldn't. Yeah.
All right. So, you mentioned potentially some mistakes. That segues into our first question, which is obviously not the first question, but here we go. That's how we're just rolling with the punches. So the question we like to ask every guest is, what is a mistake that you've made in leadership that you'll never forget?
Yes, absolutely. The mistake that I made really was not leading from the front. So this concept of, hey, I'm going to hire this great team and you're going to go out do this and you're going to do that and that, and then I'm going to sit back and be the wizard behind the curtain. I tried that for 9 years, and it was disenfranchising to my team, and also I became disconnected from. I wasn't as connected with the reality of what was happening with the business. So in 2018, I made a conscious decision to pivot and decided to lead from the front and really get in the trenches. And if I was going to ask somebody to do it, I had already done it and was going to continue to do it. And that was really the foundation of the culture moving forward. On how we were able to grow and create an incredible following, not only just with our clients, but even more so attracting incredible talent.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love that. There's definitely part of me that wishes I could go back and do something similar. The way I'd kind of worked up in my last company, there was really no option to go get licensed and do the work anymore once I was in the seat. But man, yeah, it always felt like I was just a little bit disconnected. Certainly not the wizard behind the curtain, but just that aspect of, man, I wish I could be a little bit more relatable to some of the folks that I've not done their job. So it's really admirable that you did that.
Thank you.
So, okay, 20 plus years you've been in the business.
I have.
Right. A lot of times some of the things we learn, especially about leadership and culture, are by experiencing different companies with different cultures and things like that. And, we talked about, you're actually mutual friends with Tim Hamilton, who's been on our show. And when he started that company, he was in high school.
That's right.
And so it's a real similar kind of thing. Like, you haven't jumped from company to company. You've seen your company or companies, but they've been yours. So what are some of your go-to? Where do you lean into to learn, to grow, to challenge yourself, especially in leadership?
Great question. The pivotal moment for me was actually getting a coach, and really, then it was a mentor. It's because the biggest thing that I found, and I'm really glad you're doing this podcast, there's no formal training for leadership.
Yeah,
there's not. It's fail and then fail less. And there's only leadership is founded really in a school of hard knocks. And so the only person that I've come across that actually is an incredible leadership trainer is Darren Hardy. Okay. And he has a Darren Daily podcast, and he is absolutely incredible. I've been to his he does a forum in person. It's 4 days, and I've been there twice. It's not inexpensive at all. It's a kind of an arm and a leg, but the leadership skills that I received from that were bar none, and really just changed my life.
Wow, that's interesting. Say his name one more time.
Darren Hardy.
Darren Hardy and Darren Daily. Okay.
Yep.
Darren, like it sounds.
Darren and then Hardy.
Okay. Definitely going to check that out. Put in the show notes as well.
Yes.
We finally, I think 10 episodes in, we're like, we should take note of every book or podcast that people mention and create a resource page. So we're starting now. We're taking notes. I can.
That's correct.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
He wrote the compound effect.
Producer Daniel, y'all can't see him or hear him over there, but he's chiming in and he's taking notes. Thank you, by the way. Okay, and you're right. I mean, there isn't really. I mean, there's quote unquote leadership training. There's the Dale Carnegie, and there's the what's his face, the big dude. Tony Robbins. And but yeah, you don't just gather information and come away and go, I'm a leader now.
That's right.
And especially for folks that are hardwired the way you and I are, it's information doesn't really necessarily mean anything or take any root until we've experienced it. And a lot of times those experiences don't happen until we've messed it up.
That's right.
Which is, I mean, fortunate, unfortunate, I don't know, right? Because you're a little more prone to take those risks that need to be taken, push the envelope a little bit, but along the way, there are some screw ups for sure.
Absolutely.
Man, definitely got to check out Darren Hardy and all that. I love learning about new things. Are you a reader at all? Do you read many books or?
No. I stay on top of our underwriting guidelines. So I do quite a bit of reading and from an economic perspective on what's going on with the market. That's really one of our big differentiators is that I'm really diving in and looking for the opportunities on how to communicate that and really overcome a lot of the media that is the media throws a national blanket on what's happening in housing, and that's not accurate for what's happening locally. And so anyway, all the reading I do is really centered around studying the economics and seeing how I can help consumers decipher information, and I work with agents in order to get that information to them so that they can make good decisions for them and their family.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So the answer is I read a lot, but not in the vein that you were
interesting,
asking.
Fun reading.
Right.
You're not like, hey, here's one you could audiobook tomorrow.
Right.
Like, no, that would be. Unless I'm having trouble falling asleep.
There you go.
This is like off topic from the culture bit, but I mean, obviously the housing market and the overall economy are very hand in hand. Have you seen all these predictions about the end of this decade having the like depression level recession coming at us? Or am I depressing you now because you haven't heard about this?
No, I haven't heard about it. But ultimately, there's always the sky is falling information that's out there. I mean, yes, I read a lot, and so I see all that, and I just push it to the side because I don't. We have the ability to create our own reality.
Yep.
And part of, again, that is some of the things that have hurt me in the way that I've led financially, because I'll hold on to things because I think that I can recreate against some current headwinds. And so that part has allowed me to, or caused me to keep my team maybe and longer than I should and not make some of those difficult decisions. But at the end of the day, we live in a big city and there's always people buying houses, and we just need to go out there and find who those people are. So I really believe that we have the opportunity to create, and as long as we're adding value, people are going to need our services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that'll keep your employees running and more jobs created. Okay, so going to your people, talking about your people. I read on your website like the kind of differentiators, but I couldn't find core values. And sometimes I actually appreciate that sometimes because you're like, no, these are ours. Like we're not advertising these to the public. You don't have to rattle off all your core values, but just what's one that like internally core value like really drives you personally in your leadership style?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the foundations of what I took away from when I went to the Darren Hardy forum was understanding and actually having some core values. And so I had one of those things, you wake up in the middle of the night and they just start coming to you. And so you create your top 10 and who you are. And ultimately for me, it was leading with a servant's heart and really embodying that with all of our team members, that we are here to positively impact everybody that we touch. And so when we look at life through that lens and approach business through that lens, things changed.
Yeah.
And then the other one was understanding that your attitude as a person on our team impacts everybody else on our team. So if you had a bad morning with your spouse or your kids or something, do your best or take time to unpack that to where you can leave that behind and not have that as part of what's happening when you come to the office. Because if you bring that energy into the office, it's felt by all of us. And so, really doing our best to keep the office environment really positive.
Yeah. Do you find that, I mean, so I'm sure you do, but like the downer energy, the toxic employee, it's to me just feels 20x more impacting than a positive employee. Like it takes so many more positive people to overcome that toxic person or that really downer type of individual. Do you feel that too?
Yes. We've gotten, one of the things that you learn obviously through doing leading for 20 years and being a part of all this is understanding how to identify a toxic employee, calling them out, creating a very specific action plan to allow them to fix what's going on, and then ending that relationship. So in part of our core values, it's we identify cancer and cut it out immediately as part of our family.
Nice.
And because it's my job to protect our family.
Yeah.
And so I treat our team like family. Now that has good and bad connotations, by the way, because a lot of families are very dysfunctional. I say, right here too, right? And so with that being said, it's a family you get to choose. And so if you could pick your ideal family and all the ideal characteristics, what would that look like? And so that's how I approached our core values. That's how I approach our team. And that's what I built. And I've been really, really happy with that. It's
I love that. How long ago was the core value developing?
2018.
2018. Okay. Have you been hiring people since then?
Yes.
Yeah. What were some of your methodologies to make sure you're hiring people that fit in with those core values?
So going over the core values with them. So, and it's part of our interview process. So we found out a great way to onboard people is having 3 to 4 different people interview. We usually have a 4-interview process.
Wow.
It starts with a personality profile test. I'm usually the last person to interview, and because I tend to lead people with my questions on what I want them to say, and it's not rocket science because I just like people overall, right? And so I found out that I'm the worst person to interview because I'm just like, you seem like a nice guy, come on board, and that's really the absolute wrong way to go about it. So you having others that understand how to vet people and going through that process along with a personality profile test. We use DISC. It's been very, very effective for us. I've taken lots of courses on exactly how to analyze that to figure out who can fit in where. But at the bottom line is really understanding and going over those core values with them and have them embody them. And then say why these core values are there, what it means to us, and what it means if they don't uphold that. And so that was really where a lot of the magic came through. In 2018, I had a separation from my previous team and into going into my new team. And so it was just me in 2018, and we built it up to 43 people.
Wow. That's a lot of hiring. Yeah. So I guess I was picturing in my head this timeline of, you had maybe 20 employees in 2018. Like, okay, now we're hiring a few more, But no, you kind of...
In 2018, I left one company and went to another. In my previous team, the company went to my previous team and said, "Hey, we're going to make you an offer you can't refuse to stay."
Wow.
And they had stayed behind to close out our pipeline. And while I went to the new company to start the new pipeline, and then they were going to come over after they closed it out. And our previous company went to them and said, "We're going to make you an offer you can't refuse." And the other part of who I am, I just want what's best for everybody. And if that's not with me, that's okay. And I can't take that personally because I want what's best for you, and only you know what's best for you and your family.
Sure.
And if that's not with me, that's okay. And so they chose to do what was best for them and their family, what they felt at the time. What's really interesting is one of them the lead of that person ended up coming back to work with us 2.5 years later. So at any rate, it says a lot, I think, about that was a great testament, I think, to leadership. Doubt. But at any rate, in 2018, I started over all by myself. Man. And went to Darren Hardy and really realized that I had to look internally and realize that I was really lacking in some leadership, and that I took away the biggest thing was lead from the front and then have core values and understand what that is. It's interesting when you outline your core values and you tell people this is what I stand for, they self-select if they're part of it or not. Yeah. And then you build your tribe. And when you have a tribe and then you have a unified group all moving in the same direction, it's fascinating what you can accomplish.
Yeah. They also snuff out your bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
On your core values. Like, oh, this is my core value. And they're like, no, it's not.
Right.
So they have to be true to you. And then you have to lean into them and hold yourself accountable to them as well. Yeah. So you're laying it all out there at the very beginning. They understand what the values are, why they're important, how even consequence works within those core values. And I love that. And I assume that continues on as they're working for you. Core values are coming into play when you're praising someone for something they did well, when you're admonishing them for something they didn't do well, you're tying those in.
So you hit the nail on the head. So when we go through the core values with them, I say, look, we manage, train, and terminate by these core values. So it's the rules are laid out prior to you coming on. You know exactly what you need to do and what you cannot do in order to be a part of this family and in this team. And so, yes, we manage, and I've said that many times in our rally calls, that we manage to our core values.
It's so much more effective because, I mean, people are going to make mistakes on spreadsheets or TPS reports. What was that movie? Office Space?
Right.
I don't know if TPS reports are real, but it's a good reference. And we're going to make the silly mistakes, but those don't tank a business. Right. You know, like what can take a business is when your whole culture dives, and your culture dives when people stop living into core values, when they become toxic and you don't do anything about it. You know, those things take root and they just poison everything.
Yep.
And I mean, you know, people say all the time on the podcast here, you know, or clients of mine, you know, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
That's absolutely right.
You have to have strategy, obviously. But yeah, culture matters. And core values are a huge part of that.
Absolutely.
The company that I was with was 33 years old when I came on. No core values, no mission statement, no vision, not even a business plan.
Wow.
And everything was on like paper and pen, like no technology. It was just completely archaic. I couldn't believe it.
Right.
And it was a few years before I was in a place where I had the influence to go bring all of that in, and it changed everything.
Yeah.
And you know, of course, you had the old boomer guy, you know, founder who, you know, every once in a while would come in and overstep, you know, and didn't understand it. You know, he couldn't grasp, like, wait, hold on. So you're being all, what did he say? He's like, you're telling me all this hippy dippy shit works? Right. Hell yeah. I mean, it's not that. It's, you know, caring for people. And it matters. Yeah. Yeah, it works.
Yeah. No, we lead with our core values. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we sell mortgages, and people can go online, or they can go to a bank, or they can go anywhere for that. Mm-hmm. So we're a commoditized product in many cases. So for us, we found leading with our core values sets us apart from everybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Speaking of the industry and like, you know, it's commoditized. It's also, and I say this because again, my last company was also not sexy. Like, you're not the tech startup that's like, you know, changing the world one diaper at a time, or whatever the people's slogans are these days. Like you're a mortgage lender. So like do you find that it's more difficult without the kind of the sex appeal to like just initially draw people into what you're doing to work for you particularly?
Oh, so yeah. So, no, you know, at the end of the day, when your mission statement is to positively impact and change the lives of everybody that we touch, people, again, they go back to self-nominating. You know, one of the things that we found, and that I kind of was able to, in our business from 2019 through just really this year, you couldn't hire a person in the industry because our industry was exploding so fast.
There's nobody to hire.
That's right. Because, you know, rates were below 3%. I mean, everything was just blowing and going. Everybody and their brother was refinancing. Yep. And so you couldn't hire. And so one of the things I started doing was looking outside of the mortgage industry, because the people that you could hire, they were so expensive, which is sad, because when people are demanding that type of revenue, for example, you know, they were making $80,000, and now in order to hire them, you got to pay them $130,000. They're the first ones out the door. Yeah. And so when you explain that to them as well, and like, look, you can work for anybody, anywhere, but really, who makes you feel important, who listens, and who helps you understand that you matter. And so we were able to bring people and attract people, but we also started looking outside the industry. And for us, we found the hospitality industry was a really great spot to recruit from. And because the hospitality people, they love taking care of other people. Mm-hmm. And when you really start diving into it, it's advice, not price. And it is people's largest financial transaction. And while you may have bought a home 3 or 4 or 5 times, if we are true professionals, we're not commoditized. Yeah. And because then we're showing spreadsheets and long-term value, and this is how long you're going to live in the house depends on how you set up a mortgage. And then we have all the spreadsheets that back all that up. Yeah. And people are like, wow, I just thought I was going to buy a 30-year fixed and points or no points. And I didn't realize that, well, I don't need to put 25% down, or I can structure my loan this way and save money, and then I can do other things with this money. And so it really becomes eye-opening when you actually are a professional of your craft.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I've experienced that personally too. And first house I bought in my 20s, I just happened upon this guy, Todd, who, is a lender. And I didn't know the difference, right? But it was such a good experience. The next time I bought a house, I shopped him and I went back, and he was still the best and still by far the most informative. And then I moved to Austin, did it again.
Yep.
And so, I've used the same guy, I think 4, maybe 5 times now.
Right.
And I mean, there's probably other options out there. But you get such good service from somebody, that person cares what they're doing, about what they're doing and who they're helping. It makes a huge difference.
It does.
Yeah. And it's just like everybody knows a dozen realtors.
Right.
But everybody knows one good one.
Yes, that's right.
So I don't know as many lenders, but yeah, I bet it's pretty similar in your line of work.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, COVID still exists, but we're not nearly in the throes of it, experiencing what, the chaos of when it first came out. But I'm curious, do you have an office here? Did you guys have a season where you were not in the office? Like, tell me about the whole remote and hybrid and where you're at now.
Yeah, thanks. So it has been obviously learning, and you've got to pivot and roll. We do have a physical office, and what we learned, so throughout COVID, we decided that corporate sent everybody home, of course, and then you have protocols if somebody catches it and all of those types of things. But what we found is we're a very synergistic team, and that we really needed that.
Yeah.
And so it was very interesting so we were always together, and I gave everybody the latitude if they didn't feel comfortable coming in, that it's okay. Do again what's best for you and your family, and we lead with that. And then you're managed, of course, to metrics, but people have to make that decision. What we found is that we created such an incredible group of people. Our team members wanted to come into the office.
Wow.
And so it was really incredible. And so we did fun things like playing basketball on Fridays and going to Dave and Buster's, and keeping
coughing on each other on Tuesdays.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
That's weird.
It was interesting though. So we did have to make a decision in October. Our rent went up almost double.
Oh,
and so it was
October of 2020.
October of 2022.
Oh, just now. Okay.
And we didn't have an office space, but I said, nope, we're not participating. I mean, we just didn't have the budget for it anyway. And so we wrapped up that, and we were looking for an office space. And matter of fact, it was another, I would say, something that I learned, not necessarily the way that I wanted to, but I would have had an office space to land prior to letting that go. But I was like, hey, we'll just work remote. And so anyway, we went out without an office space for a couple of months, and without that synergy, we actually ended up losing 4 people. It was the first time that actually people went to work for some competitors. Now, again, our marketplace in our world right now, it's all about recruiting too. And so, sure. A lot of people are sold that the grass is always greener on the other side, right?
Oh, yeah.
And in our business, it's sometimes easier to make that move than it is to water your own lawn. And so again, I don't fault anybody for it, but I do think that our lack of synergy, because we didn't have an office space, and we went back into the office December 1st, we had a new place, but going from October and November, 2 months without that synergy really impacted our team.
That is rough.
And again, I'm happy for those that chose to move on. Our business has been really challenging, particularly. But again, I believe that had we had our office together with that daily synergy, that these folks all were coming into the office, that I don't think that they would have moved on.
Interesting.
And so now coming back in December 1st, we were in the office and people are starting to come back. But it's interesting, after people are working from home for 2 months, it's almost like they had it's harder to get them back into the office, is what I'm finding. You also overlay that though with the holidays and people, you had Thanksgiving, you're just coming off and everything else. So we'll see, but we're excited to be back in the office and hit the ground running in January.
Work schedule wise, I mean, do you feel like it's kind of everybody's there at the same time? Is there's a different flavor of flexibility now than there maybe used to be before COVID ever existed, and all this work life balance, is a terminology that's probably only come to our consciousness in the last decade.
Yeah.
Right. Like nobody ever talked about that.
Right.
So I'm curious how that's impacted you and what you guys are doing differently or the same and still seeing success.
Great question. And I'm going to touch on this because I think it is important. I am, and I'm sure many of your listeners might disagree with this, but what I found as a leader is that when people work from home, they tend to be reactive, not proactive. When they work in the office, we found that our people are happier and more productive, which allows them to go home sooner. And allows for work-life balance. Mm-hmm. And what we found is, or what I believe is that when we are working out of our home office, we're still distracted. The laundry is going off, or the dog needs to go out, or whatever the case may be. And I think I'll just go to Starbucks, right? And so we found that we were much more productive in the office. So I'm one of these people that gets in the office early, but usually folks arrive around 9 and leave somewhere between 3:30 and 4:30.
Bank hours.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Love it. Yeah,
there you go. But we're always available, type of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that anybody should be driving in traffic. I think that's ridiculous. And
but you live in Austin.
Yeah,
so
right.
How is that avoidable?
I
don't think 9 o'clock does it.
Right?
No.
So you get to the office before traffic, or you get to the office after traffic.
Yeah.
So that's how we do it. But we found that our people can accomplish more. So let's say if they come in at 10, because that's where they live in Cedar Park and our office is in Westlake, sure. And that's what they need to do to not drive in traffic, because I'm committed to that. That they are far more productive from 10 to 6 or 10 to 4 because of the synergy in the office and being proactive, just proactively focused.
Yeah, and I think a 40-hour work week ends up having so much waste. People, I have 8 hours to do 4 hours of work, so I'm going to goof off and do jack nothing.
Right.
And when you shorten that for people, and you're like, it puts some pressure on, and they get super efficient, and they end up doing more work in less hours a lot of times. That's not always the case, right? I mean, especially on a factory line, there's only so much you can do, but there are definitely types of jobs that, I think the concept of 40 hours it's just like an arbitrary number that has no scientific backing or methodology or reason whatsoever.
Right.
And really, it depends on the industry, but it sounds like you probably have some people that work 8, 9, 10 hours, and you have some that work 6.
Right. No, for sure. But let's also talk about why having people come in versus work from home. If you have a culture that people really enjoy and look forward to coming to the office, and then you have a leader that actually stops and, like, I stop and chat with everybody. Say good morning. I ask them to come, hey, when you get here, come say hi. And I'll get up and walk around throughout the day and stop in and check on them and see how things are going to really let them know that I care. Yeah. Because I do. And so I make that just part of something that I do as a leader, and people really appreciate it. And so we've found that while people can be effective from working from home, but if you create a culture and a space that they really enjoy going to, they are happier and they get more work done.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it took me a little while to learn the drive-by, just to stop in and chat. And I'm like, and I guess in hindsight, I'm like, what did I expect them to know, that I cared by osmosis? But yeah, just being able to stop by and because once I get to work, I just feel like I hone in, and I get going. I'll chat in the mornings, and then the rest of the whole day is just work.
Right.
Because I want to leave at 3 o'clock.
Right.
But yeah, it really does mean something to stop by and chat. And Daniel was the king of that. Producer Daniel over there, who we're going to set up a rig where we can see and hear him, so we can chime in more on these. But
he's a wizard behind the curtain.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that I did learn by the School of Hard Knocks, though, because I previously leading a team, I didn't stop and chat with them because it really was laser in focus. My philosophy was, hey, if you want to talk, come and talk to me. Yeah. Right. And again, in 2018, I really had to do a paradigm shift on how I approach things because not leading from the front wasn't working. Had I led from the front, I do believe that my team, even if there was an offer that they couldn't refuse, I think it would have been gone differently. had I led differently. And so you learn, just like we talked about earlier, you learn through your failures.
Yeah, you do.
And then you, as long as you're able to look internally and grow from them, it can be a really good experience.
Yeah, the mistakes raise our self-awareness, but then we have to actually learn from them. And learning from them in leadership means actually implementing new strategies, new actions, behaviors, sometimes counterintuitive to our own hardwiring even.
Absolutely.
And so timing wise, it's a good time to kind of transition to the psychometric. I had you take that. You use DISC, which is great. So you're familiar with the concept of looking into our hardwiring, and you're what's called a maverick. So your dominance is your highest trait, and your formality is your lowest. You're all gas, no brakes.
It hit me, nail on the head. Absolutely.
You want to have your fingerprint on ideas. You enjoy being in charge and leading, not in some domineering weird way, but just you enjoy leading. Rules are suggestions. They're for everybody else. And you're excellent at delegating, but not necessarily hardwired to want to do the work. And so I'm curious if that resonates, because to me, when you talk about that, I think that you have to almost like stretch your hardwiring and push against it a little bit to go and do the work yourself and kind of have your hand in each kind of pot doing the work. Is that true?
It is true. I've some of the comments they're like, Ryan, you just go from A to Z. You forget that there's B, C, D, E, and all these steps. You just think it just gets done, right? And so again, that was part of my leadership challenge of leading from the front. And yes, I did have to stretch and wire myself to that. I have to understand all these steps, because then I have to also understand what I'm asking of people, and I also have to understand what a realistic time frame is for it to be done in, whether if it's shorter or longer, because I am all gas, no brakes, which also means others have said, Ryan, you work at a speed that I've never seen before. And so I've had that comment by several of the folks that I work with on our team. And so at any rate, it is, you just have to, it helps me understand expectations and timeframes for things to get done, and then also be able to show them that it can be accomplished in an hour, not 3 hours.
Right.
And this is how you do it. And so when you're also a part of the leader, that being a leadership style of, I'm here to also help you be better in your craft. This is how I got it done in an hour. And if I can do it, I believe that anybody can do it. Nice. So that's kind of also something, because I'm definitely not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But I do, I lead with passion, and I'm all in on no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's mentioned, you mentioned the efficiency, getting it done in an hour versus 3. One of the other traits on this is patience, and you have not much at all. But the good part about that is it makes you driving. It makes you adaptable. You want a variety of work around you, a variety of just things that you're touching, right? If you had to do the same thing day in and day out, it'd drive you nuts.
Yes.
But it also means you want it done yesterday.
Yes.
And when you have folks on your team that I'm sure don't share that hard wiring trait, they are the more methodical, systematic, kind of like paced approach. They're probably going to get done more accurately than you would have.
Absolutely.
Which is great.
Absolutely.
But not at the pace you want them to get it done at.
Right. One thing that this was a pivotal moment also in my leading style, was asking them how long it's going to take for it to get done.
That's great.
And it was their job to ask me when I needed it done by. And so I would say, look, I need this done tomorrow by 12. And they're like, Ryan, it's really going to be 3 days from now. And I'm like, okay, well then let's look at your priority list and let's rearrange things, or I need a reality check, because it can't be done unless I'm going to do it. And then if I'm going to do it, it may not be as accurate. Right. So it's that thing of fast, cheap, or good. You can have 2 of the 3, but you can't have all 3. Right.
Yep.
And so that was also something that I really had to it's interesting. These little tweaks have massive, coming back to the compound effect, they just have massive trajectory changes. And that little tweak of, hey, how long do you think this is going to take for you to get done? Or actually, empowering them to tell me how long it's going to take to get done. Yeah. And that is part of my leadership change, was empowering the folks that I work with to not feel that intimidation or pressure to operate under Ryan's time frame. It's, hey, what is the time frame? I hired you as a competent, individual, which means I have to put trust in you that it's going to get done right, and it's going to be clean, and it's going to be perfect, or it's going to be as good as product you can put together in the time frame. But empowering them to push back on, hey, no, noon tomorrow is not realistic. And it's not realistic with what I have on my plate, or it's not realistic. I put aside everything and just focus on this 100%. And so really empowering them to have that open conversation, because most employees I've found will just try to bear and carry that burden, and ultimately you burn them out and you crush them. And that's not the intent. And so that one question totally changed our entire dynamic at the office.
Yeah. There's another theme that I'm hearing from you that I want to give you props for, from people self-selecting based on values to setting their own timelines, being able to speak up, getting this transparency. You're giving power away.
Absolutely.
You're giving them a sense of autonomy. And I mean, you have there's these weird movements, especially with men in America, that like they want to just hold on to power, like the alpha male bullshit. And but like that to me is just a huge sign of insecurity.
Absolutely.
And
ego.
And a lack of power.
Yep.
But like power is not a finite resource. You can give it away all day long. And when you empower people, which is the word you just said, you're giving them autonomy, you're giving them power, you're giving them control over kind of their own destiny, and they perform so much better.
Oh my gosh.
And they love what they do so much more.
They do. It is about giving away the power. And you hit the nail on the head. And then they become more cohesive because they have power. They feel that they're in control. They feel like they're a family. And so, thank you.
Yeah. Even people, I mentioned the dominance trait, that yours is very high. It's your highest trait. Even people with a low, dominance, that just means they don't need to be in charge. It means they're more collaborative and kind of team focused. It doesn't mean they don't have autonomy.
Right.
Like everybody needs to feel like autonomy in their life and in their job.
Yep.
I love that. Props to you on that leadership style for sure.
Thanks. And I wanted to put this in there too. I think having an attitude of abundance, really, when your mission is to positively impact and change the lives of everybody that we touch, with an attitude of abundance. I mean, there's a gajillion competitors out there, but I have the ability to go create my own reality. Am I just willing to do the work? There's plenty of business, even in this market. I haven't adapted to doing the work, and so it takes time to shift into those adoptions. And so having an attitude of abundance as a leader, I think, has been also really key.
I love that, and the opposite of that is scarcity, and that scarcity mindset. I mean, not just at work, in life, will just tear you apart.
Absolutely.
You'll never have enough. You'll never be enough. And I really love that attitude and mentality. So again, great job.
Thank you.
Love it. Let's transition. We're getting toward the end of our time. So give me some plugs. What's something that you want to put out there, side project or an idea or your company? Give our audience something.
Yeah. Interesting plugs. You stumped me. Because ultimately it's, we would love an opportunity to earn everybody's business. And of course, that's what we're here to do. But at the end of the day, we believe in education and foundation, about really trying to, the sky is not falling. You mentioned earlier, like the doomsday, right? And all this that's happening. And are we going to go into a recession or a Great Depression and all of that? I just don't believe. I just don't think that way.
Sure.
And there's always going to be the 10% of people that always think the sky is falling. There's always going to be the 10% of the people that live in the clouds. And then there's that 80% of us in the middle. Yeah. And I do my best to be grounded and not make decisions out of greed or ego. And so, I wish I could have had a plug.
All right. Well, I'll take your humble hat off for just a second and just ask the question, like, with your mortgage lending, where is your territory? Anywhere in Austin, anywhere in Texas, anywhere?
Thank
Anywhere?
you. Yeah. So yeah, great. Yeah, exactly right. So I'm the regional president for the state of Texas, but we can do business anywhere we're licensed, and so we are not licensed in Rhode Island, New Jersey, New York, and Georgia. So those 4 states are where we cannot.
Nobody
operate.
lives in New York anyway. So
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Not people that we know. So no, at any rate, but we are blessed to do second homes all over the country and investment properties and even primary residences for those folks.
Love it. Awesome. And it's HomeTown lending.
HomeTown lenders.
Perfect. All right, well, here we go. We're going to do this quick fire, right? It's this or that. So I'm just going to say 2 things. You got to choose one right off the top of your head if you can. Beach or mountains?
Wow. I'm a mountain guy.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
But I spend more time at the beach.
Okay. We don't have to necessarily quick fire.
Yeah.
Mountains, do you ski, do you snowboard, or you just enjoy the mountains?
I just really enjoy the mountains. I actually prefer, I've skied and snowboarded plenty and I don't like it. And I can get around on it and I'm fine. But at the end of the day, my back and my knees hurt. And so, but I enjoy the mountains during the summertime. Is a beautiful time.
Just seeing them. Yeah. I haven't been snowboarding in a long time. And I fear how less my body will recover compared to when I used to actually go all the time.
So true.
Back to it. Broccoli or green beans?
Broccoli.
DC or Marvel?
Marvel.
Okay. World Series baseball or World Cup soccer?
It's definitely soccer.
Yeah. So you've been enjoying this last season.
I really have. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, nice. Very last one. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. I'm not a coffee drinker.
All right. Have you watched Ted Lasso?
I have not.
Oh, man. Okay. Never mind. Well, it's like if y'all can't hear Daniel over there going, oh my God. Yeah. You have to watch Ted Lasso. It's one of the best shows ever. But one of the funny things is it's recurring is he's kind of country boy, and he's over in England, and every time they give him tea, he just spits it out. He's like, it's like just dirt water. But you like the dirt water.
Okay. I do. Good old Earl Grey. Yeah.
Nice.
Or green tea.
Yeah. Well, Ryan Leahy, excellent having you here. Thanks for so much of your insight, just chatting about leadership and your people, core values, and everything else.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, this is the Work Culture Podcast, and we are signing off. Thanks for tuning in.